name's Tara and I'm your Tinderella for today. So today we're going to be taking on the journey through online dating. Online dating is a terrifying topic for some people. Totally understandable. A lot of people have had bad experiences in the past dating, and some people may have never had a bad experience but are still afraid of the opportunity to try something new or the change it might bring in their life, or just generally not knowing what it is. It's still a relatively new topic, and a lot of people have actually been in relationships or past relationships since before it even existed. So for those kind of people, you can find yourself in a whole new world after a breakup and not really knowing how to navigate it. Now, there's no one answer, but from my personal mistakes and successes, I thought I might bring some tips to help guide you through the journey. So point number one, of course, is what is it? And online dating is the same as in the person to person, except all you get to start with is a photo and a brief spiel about what the person likes, who they are, maybe their sense of humour. You can try online dating either through apps like Tinder or Bumble, or you can have a look online with plenty of different websites. One called Plenty of Fish, pretty self-explanatory. So the method of online dating is completely up to you. From what I've heard, there's not a huge difference in success rates. However, the strategies that you can undertake may make a big difference in your experience of the apps, and also how you feel about going about the process. So before I restarted a second time after a couple of failures, I decided that it was time to make a list of things that I wanted in a partner, and things that were deal breakers as well that I absolutely did not want, or I'd had in the past and knew that it was just an absolute nightmare. So for me, some of my list included things like someone who was stable and reliable. That was really important to me after dating someone who was really flaky and unreliable, and I just really didn't like the insecurity it brought to my life and my planning. Also someone who had good career prospects or who was interested in growing and developing was something that really interested me. Someone who had similar interests to myself. Someone who could get on well with my friends and family was really important. Someone who had a decent financial sense and wasn't in huge amounts of debt or wasting huge amounts of money. So I actually had a list of 20. I won't bore you with all of them, but they're just 5 examples of some of the things that I thought were really important to me. Now, when you're making your list, I can give you some more examples about what you might like to consider. So you might like to look at, is ambition important for you, or someone who's career orientated? And there's a couple of ways you can look at it as well, because you can be looking at it from the angle that I really want someone who has a job that they enjoy, because that makes them happy and then they're going to be easier to be around, and I think that will create positivity in our relationship. You could look at it from the angle of it's important for me to have someone that actually doesn't work too much and work too much overtime, because I've found that I don't feel supported enough if my partner's at work for 16 hours a day. You might want to look at it from an angle as well of what kind of lifestyle you'd like long term. So will my partner's career work well with my career? Are our work hours compatible, or is that something that could be worked on to make it compatible and make it the kind of lifestyle I'd be looking for? You could also have a look at if someone has good communication skills. That's a really important thing for a lot of people. So do you have similar styles of fighting or resolving conflict? For example, if you're someone who is quite quiet and sensitive, it's often going to be really, really challenging for you if you're with someone that's quite aggressive or really verbally likes to get into the arguments in a lot of depth and in a quite attacking style. If you're not someone that enjoys that level of conflict or can deal with that, I suppose if it's something that would cause you a lot of stress or anxiety, then that may not be a good pairing. With communication skills too, you might be looking at, can they express what they need to you in a positive manner? So rather than expressing, oh, I'm so sick of you leaving your towels on the floor, blah, 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 in a negative way, can they be like, I would really appreciate it if you could do this for me, because if it happens like this, that makes me feel a little bit irritated, so perhaps this is something we could talk about. Another thing you might want to look at is if someone's supportive of your goals. All partners should be supportive of your goals, but rate this on a scale of importance for you. If you're someone that's really ambitious yourself, it's really important to have someone that won't stand in your way. Another one that you might want to look at is if they're reliable, if they're someone that can be counted on. You might want to also have a look at things that may seem a little bit more trivial, but do you have similar religious beliefs or political beliefs? Because while it can seem like it's trivial to some people, it's really, really core to others. And if religion's really important to you, someone who's not religious may struggle to adapt to your belief system, and you might struggle to adapt to the fact that they have completely different values, and that's something that you really dislike about them or about the relationship. And maybe you prefer someone that has values more aligned to yours. So there's some ideas about what you might want to look for. At the end of the day though, everyone's list will be different. So it's really good to look at what's core to you. And I'd recommend brainstorming. It might be worth chatting to some friends as well to see if they could suggest anything about you that you think also is something that you might want but you've forgotten. And then keep that list handy for save it on your phone or somewhere convenient. So whenever you meet people along the journey of online dating, you can refer back to your list and see really how compatible they are with you or with what you would like. Now, before we move on to the next point, the other thing I always recommend when you're talking about the list, I recommend putting down the things that are really core of importance to you, but are also realistic. So when you ask a lot of people what they're looking for, they might say, I want someone who's smart and funny and handsome and really charming. And don't get me wrong, I can completely understand that. But that's something that's very generic, and there's very few people that will fit all of those attributes 100%. And even if they do, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'd be compatible, because it might be things like, for example, political beliefs or religious beliefs or type of lifestyle or career goals that would then conflict. So really go into depth about the core values in your life. Next step, set deal breakers. Deal breakers are so important because in relationships you deserve to be treated with respect, and you deserve for your partner to be someone that can support you and bring positivity to your life. So you might want to write a list of all of the things that you don't want in a partner. It might be things that you've seen in the past, it might be things you've seen in other people's relationships. And what I would recommend with this list is don't go to trivial things like takes a bit of time to do the dishes, but really focus on the core things that if that person had those traits, they might just be someone that's completely unsuitable. So for example, someone who's really controlling and always wants to know where you are. Someone who has some addiction issues or is really excessively into over-consuming alcohol, gambling, anything like that. If that's something that you feel like you wouldn't be comfortable with. It could be looking at things like, if you want kids, are they open to having kids, or do they want kids as well? Because if they really don't want kids and you really want kids, that could be a deal breaker. Might be looking at if someone has the ability to commit, or if they're a commitment phobe, and avoiding someone who has anger issues, or someone as well who may expect you to do a whole heap of things that you don't want to do in a relationship. So it could be someone that expects you to do all of the housework or stick to really traditional roles for you, and I know for me that might be a deal breaker. Now, once you have your list of things that you're looking for, the core values and your deal breakers, you're ready to make a start. So this next step can be a little bit scary. What I would recommend, get one of your best friends to come over, get a beverage of your choice, maybe some chocolate, some snacks to fuel the creativity, and then use that to create your bio. It can be good to have your friend there for some moral support, and it can also make it a more fun experience or something you're doing together. And ideally get someone who's really supportive of you making choices to explore online dating, because if someone there is also afraid and negative, it's going to make it a lot more difficult for you. Now, when you're creating your bio, a couple of tips there. Put up at least 3 or 4 photos of yourself. I always recommend putting photos of you in different settings, so maybe one with friends, could be one of you doing something active or one of your hobbies, and then one headshot. That gives whoever's matching a bit of an idea about who you are and what you like. And then when you're creating your bio, add a couple of sentences to really outline who you are. Like I said before, hobbies are always a really good one. Things that are core values, you could put in some sort of like quote or joke that you think will be a good opener, or something that might capture someone's attention, and maybe someone who would be compatible with you. After you've summarised some of your interests and some of the things that might draw people in, I often recommend too narrowing down the pool a little bit by putting some unique information about yourself, and things that maybe not everyone would like, but that's actually a real positive, because you're trying to avoid matches that just are really going to waste your time. So for example, if you're vegan and it's really important to you to eat healthily and you eat a lot of vegetables, if it's something you put on your profile, you're going to avoid matching with people who are hardcore meat eaters and will just never ever compromise and never eat a vegan meal and really ridicule you, that part about you. So it's something that you can just put out in the open and get out in the open straight away. So hopefully you're matching with people who are more compatible in that sense. Now, once you've got your bio ready to go, lodge up your profile, and then you're ready to get started. Very exciting. So the next step in online dating is to either sit back and wait for someone to match you, or if you're feeling like you still have a bit of energy after creating the profile, you can start swiping away or liking some other profiles. Some tips and tricks of things to avoid is watch out for ab photos. You can't say generically that you'll never find anyone good with an ab photo, but from my experience and experience of other people that I know, it's not always a sign of someone who might make a committed partner long term. Also watch out for judgmental remarks. If someone's being really particular about what they'd like, but in a way that's really putting down big groups of people, that's something I'd recommend avoiding. Or someone who's overly cocky and saying, I'm the best at everything, and have a really, really big ego. And avoid as well someone maybe who doesn't have a bio or any information about themselves, because if they don't have any information out there, it shows that they haven't put much effort into creating the profile. It might mean that they're not really that interested in pursuing the dating prospects. And things to look for when you're doing the selection: someone who has anything that you find funny or interesting in their profile. Some similar interests are always good. Someone who has some photos up that appeal to you. And while physical looks aren't the most important thing for a lot of people, often it's still important to find someone that you feel like you really like the look of them, and you feel like you could be attracted to them as well in a romantic sense. Now, once you've swiped or matched, and they've also matched you as well, the next step is obviously to get into the chatting. Now, when it comes to the talking, this can be awkward. You don't know what to say, you don't know how to start the conversation, you might be worried that they won't reply. And they're all really, really legitimate fears. Where it comes to worries about them not replying, my best advice is that there are plenty of fish in the sea. If one person doesn't reply, there are a million others that will. So try and take the pressure a little bit off yourself, and take the judgment out of your head as well. So if someone doesn't reply, it's got nothing to do with you 90% of times where it comes to online dating. Online dating is just flooded with matches, and a lot of the time people are just overwhelmed, or they might have another match that they're more seriously invested in. So take that judgmental voice out of your head saying you're not good enough, or maybe if I was this, then they would have matched me or they would have responded quicker. If they don't respond or respond quickly enough, move them to the side, move on to the next one. When you're starting a conversation, I always recommend starting with something a bit catchy or interesting. It may take a little bit of time to come up with, but you can brainstorm some quirky conversation starters. So it could be, if you could change anything in the world, what would it be? If you won lottery, what would you do? Or if you're really into reading, for example, it could be, what are your favourite 3 books? Something to find out a bit about them, and what their interests are or what their values are. Or it could be, if you were Prime Minister, what would be the first couple of things you would do? One positive is once you have your questions, you can use the same questions for everyone you match with, because they don't know that you've already used it before. But having a good opener like that will help you pick up a few things. So one is their level of interest can often become apparent by their response. If you ask a really good question and they can't respond, then maybe they're not that serious. Or if you ask a really good question and they're like, oh, I don't know, maybe that's something that will pick up that you would like someone who's creative or someone who can really engage you in conversation, and you can filter out the people that don't build the conversation or give back to the conversation. You can also use it as well to further find out about that person. So for example, if you ask, if you're Prime Minister, what are the first few things you would do? Judging by their responses, you can determine if they have similar political views to you or similar values. And that will help to build the conversation, and from there you can move on to ask them a bit more about their responses. Or you can also see, do they return the favour and ask you a question back, or ask what you would do in that situation. So they're all important things to look for. And just to summarise from that, start with a catchy opener, avoid people that don't respond, or give a response that just is not interesting. Watch for people that talk a lot about themselves but never really ask you a question back. And also really use the questions to find out more about that person. So these questions are an opportunity for you to suss out, are there any deal breakers? And also, does this person tick off the core things I'm looking for? I know when I did it, I had a list of 20, and as I was talking to people, I'd try and ask questions around the core things I was looking for in a more chilled out way. So not as in, how much do you earn, but more as in, what's your dream job, or how do you see yourself progressing in the next 5 years, to find out about their career aspirations. Now, where it comes to chatting as well, I often recommend to avoid really basic topics. So avoid openers about travel or Netflix or music. While these can be great things to have in common, often it's something you share with a lot of people. So most people love Netflix, or love music, or love travel, or love drinking, or eating. So while they're all good things to talk about, they won't necessarily help you narrow down much about your core values at all and the core things you're looking for. So instead, I recommend using more targeted questions. So I might be asking things like, what's your dream day or dream weekend? And in that, you're getting to know a bit about their hobbies. Are they someone that is social? Are they active? Do they have a similar routine to you, or a similar lifestyle? As in, if you're someone that really enjoys a relaxed weekend and you ask someone about what their usual weekend looks like and they have 20 things on, then maybe that's something that is something you want to dig into a bit further to see if that person's the kind of person that would be able to chill out with you and really enjoy a relaxed weekend, or if they're just far too busy and hectic to fit with your lifestyle. Now, some of the other things I recommend sussing out as well is if it seems like they're someone who has values that you're looking for. So for me, I always think a good question could be to ask someone, do you call yourself a feminist? That's a good way to judge if they're someone who's quite traditional in gender roles, or maybe if they say that they don't at all, then you You can ask them a little bit about why, to suss out what their belief system is about women and their roles, because it's something that unfortunately there still is a lot of hanging around sexism. And if it's not something that you want in your life to be stuck to those gender roles, it's good to suss that out early before you meet someone that you really like, but then realise that they're putting all of these expectations on you to do lots of domestic work or things that you're not looking for. Another thing I'd recommend sussing out is a bit about their past relationships. So for me, a couple of things to watch out for is someone that's really, really recently left a relationship, especially a long-term relationship, because they might not be ready to start something new again. Also watch out for someone who is really negative and nasty about all of their exes and blames them for all of the failures. Because generally what I find is if you have someone, they might have had some bad experiences in the past or some exes that are not great people. But if they think that everyone that they've ever met is like that, then it's more likely to be them than their exes. And also might be worth asking about how their last relationship ended. So you're looking for how they respond in a difficult situation, and if there's anything about them that you should be aware of. Like, for example, if they cheated in their last relationship, that's something you may like to know earlier rather than later, so that you can prepare yourself emotionally for that, or see if that lands on your deal breaker list and then it's not something you want to pursue further. The other thing you might want to suss out too is what kind of relationship they have with their ex-partner, because if they see them really, really regularly and they're really close, I suppose the other concern then is, are they still emotionally invested with their ex-partner, and are they ready for a new relationship? So if they're still far too invested, then maybe it's not a good time for you to start getting involved with them, because they might not have the emotional capacity to support you. Now, once you've talked to them for a while, if you start to see some sort of prospects there and you're interested, I always recommend seeing what they're looking for to see if it matches with what you're looking for. So you could ask them, are you looking for something serious or something casual? Are you looking for a relationship? Any of those kind of questions. And I often find that if they aren't looking for a relationship, or they aren't really sure what they're looking for, then there's no point pursuing that seriously if what you're looking for is a relationship. If you're looking for something casual and they're looking for something casual, that works well. Or if they're looking for a relationship and you're looking for a relationship, that also works well. But if it's two different pages about what you're looking for, then often that will just lead to heartbreak and avoid. Once you've sussed out their intentions, and once you've seen if they meet some of your core values, might be ready to meet them in person just to see if you have that kind of connection and if there's a spark. To keep safe if you're meeting in person, I always recommend meeting in a public place, and it can be worth just meeting for a short period of time. To really just suss out, I suppose, if you get on well, before you commit to wasting a whole evening on someone that maybe you meet and then you realise you actually aren't that compatible. They call this a zero date often, so what I would recommend, set aside an hour and meet for either a coffee or a drink or something that's not too committal. And then if it goes well, you can extend the date and do something after that. Or it might be after the hour you realise that maybe not this one, and then after the coffee's finished or after the drink, that's an opportunity for you to leave. If you're worried that you might get stuck there and you're one of those people that finds it hard to make an exit, you could also let them know beforehand you have other plans. So for example, say, oh look, it would be great to meet up with you for a coffee. How about we meet at 11? And you can let them know maybe that, oh, unfortunately I'm quite busy that day, so I'll have to leave at midday for a friend's party or to meet a friend, but it would be good just to meet you then. So then you have that excuse to leave if you need it. So that's a bit of a rundown on the process and some tips and tricks. The last thing I thought would be good to talk about a little bit is taking care of yourself during the process. So it can be quite emotional. It can be really difficult if there's any rejection or if you meet someone that isn't kind towards you. My personal advice is always be aware that if someone says something negative to you, that's the headspace that they're in, but it isn't necessarily a reflection of you or who you are. If you meet someone like that, I would recommend just deleting them, not engaging. As I said before, there are plenty of fish in the sea, so you don't need someone like that. And really just see it as an indication of their personality and really the fact that you've dodged a bullet by not going down that path. For self-care, I always recommend doing something nice for yourself. If you have a bad date or if there's disappointment, just arrange to have a bit of space for you to process your feelings. And if it's something that is really difficult, it might be worth having a chat to a professional like a counsellor, or if you don't feel ready for that, even having a chat to a good friend or family member about that experience will just help to process a little bit how you're feeling and hopefully make it a little bit easier. It may come to a point where you realise that you're not enjoying the process. You can stop. Online dating really is an option, and it's not something that you have to pursue at any point. It's something that you only need to pursue if you feel like you're ready and if you feel like you want to. You can stop at any time, start at any time, restart, stop. That's absolutely fine. If you have any questions, you're welcome to comment on our post as well. So that's a bit of a debrief on online dating. Fingers crossed it goes well for you if you choose to embark on the journey. If it doesn't go so well, as I said, it's not you. Don't worry personally about anything that anyone says to you, because you're wonderful and there are a million people in the world that would appreciate you. Now, just before we finish up today, I'd just like to let people know that we do have an upcoming seminar on reaching your career goals. It's something that I'll be running, and if you're interested in taking the new year, new you approach and pursuing something that you've always wanted to pursue, or if you don't really know what direction you want to go in your career but you feel like you're ready to make some changes, or if you've had kids and then you're ready to go back into the workforce, come along. This course will guide you through the process of setting some goals for yourself and exploring different options and different careers out there. It'll guide you through study, the tips and tricks, courses available, scheduling how you could fit that into your busy or hectic life, scheduling also how you can keep motivated and keep committed to that course if you choose to go down that path. And it will also look at how to write cover letters and resumes, and actually working on it in a workshop. So in a really collaborative setting on just really making that wow impression. If you contact any employers, or if there's something you want to look into a bit further, you can also look to the group about different tips and tricks for really getting to that next level of where you want to be. Lastly, we'll also be looking at how to ace a job interview and doing some practice on that in class, so that when you're actually in the process, it's going to be a little bit less stressful because you know some of the right things to say and how to respond and what are some of the questions asked in a job interview. Once that's done, our last session will be preparing you for the workplace. So wherever you are, it'll be about looking at the do's and don'ts, how to fit into a workplace culture, what your rights are as an employee, and also if there's any next steps or future goals that you want to seek, then that's something we can help you work on too. So that it's a 6-week course starting on the 22nd of February. And during the 6 weeks, the aim is just to guide you through from where you are now to where you'd like to be in the future, setting those goals and getting that ball rolling. If you're interested, the details are on our Facebook page, so please do feel free to sign up. We'd love to have you there. And I'll be there to support you along your journey. Thanks again for tuning into Women's Health and Wellbeing Facebook Live, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.